Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today I am going to review Assassin's Creed Shadows. I know I'm a bit late to my review of Shadows. That's because I did have a lot going on in the past while. Like in April, I was really busy with course exams. In May, I literally played the game non-stop until I got to the credits. And now in June, the Switch 2 released, so I really wasn't making videos for that long of a period of time. And now that I finished college for the summer, I thought, I have time to finally review Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, why not do it? I know I'm a bit late to my review of Shadows, but it's better late than never. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Gameplay. Assassin's Creed Shadows does deliver strong with its gameplay, since it has met my expectations for a feudal Japan setting. The combat system does benefit greatly from its dual protagonists, which was a system that was previously in Assassin's Creed Syndicate with Jacob and Evie. But this time, we have Norway, who does embody the stealthy traditional assassin style, and Yasuke, who does bring on the more brute, samurai-like character, which can be used for encounters. With how unique their fighting styles are, switching between both of them feels refreshing, since I do have my uses for each of them, like Yasuke for the more stronger bosses and assassinations, and Norway for infiltrating different cities. Those are my uses for the different characters. The parkour this time does feel quite precise, especially with Norway in her movement and traversal. Some people might argue that feudal Japan is not the right setting for an Assassin's Creed game, mainly due to the lack of places to parkour from, which I can technically agree with, but there are still places to parkour around, like the different cities, temples, but everywhere else in the map that's just like plains, grass, villages. I can agree with that, but the cities are enjoyable to parkour from. The stealth gameplay is emphasized again like it is on previous games, but I feel like in Shadows, it's kind of better, because there's more hiding spots to work with, and there's verticality this time, since there are certain spots in the game where you can hide on the ceilings. And one thing I do appreciate this time is how the enemy AI in the game is more smarter, since at times you can try and assassinate an enemy, but they can prevent you from doing so, which does add a bit more challenge into the mix. One of my favourite gameplay additions in Assassin's Creed Shadows is the hideout system, which does improve on the base building mechanics as seen in Valhalla, but unlike Ravensthorpe, Shadows allows for full control over where the buildings are placed and the layout as well, which does allow players to personalize their own base. And this feature, combined with the many open world activities and the dynamic seasonal changes, do keep the gameplay loop engaging this time around. And with that being said, I do think the pacing is a noticeable issue, especially in the opening act, which does drag on for a bit of time, taking about an hour and 20 minutes to reach the title screen from when you boot up the game for the first time. The mission design does occasionally falter, with the objectives being a bit repetitive and the pacing being a bit awkward, but overall, I do think the gameplay delivers a satisfying blend for both old and new Assassin's Creed players. For the graphics and the performance, a lot of people may say that realism in gaming is a bit overrated, but visually, Assassin's Creed Shadows is stunning. The vibrant portrayal of feudal Japan, with the all complete with rolling cherry blossoms, mountain terrain, and the seasons changing as you play the game, does give the Assassin's Creed version of feudal Japan a more dynamic atmosphere as seen in past games. While I do think the seasonal system is a cool touch this time around, the seasons don't do anything of note for the gameplay. Not gonna lie, it's a cool visual touch, but in terms of gameplay, it doesn't really do anything. The stylized assassination animations, especially having a Japanese painting-like filter where only the blood appears red, does stand out to me as a very good visual choice, which does pay homage to Japanese art. Usually, people would complain about the Assassin's Creed games and their visuals, but this visual choice is a standout to me. But I feel like the performance is less consistent since much of the world does run at 60 FPS. Since I favoured performance when I played the game, but the hideout area does drop to 30 frames per second, which does alter the immersion of the game and can create a noticeable contrast. This inconsistency does suggest some issues with the optimization. This could be different on PS5 Pro, but unfortunately, I don't have one and I'm not going to buy one to even check how it runs. And I do think the performance is a bit disappointing and a bit inconsistent. And additionally, the high action sequences can have stutters which interrupt the experience. It doesn't ruin the game in any way, but these few technical issues do hold back the presentation of Assassin's Creed Shadows from being seamless. For the characters, Naoe and Yasuke are quite a compelling duo that do enhance the overall experience of Assassin's Creed Shadows. A lot of people have been complaining that Naoe and Yasuke are generic characters, but their differing philosophies do make their characters more distinct from each other. Thanks to Naoe's assassin discipline and Yasuke's warrior strength do make for quite interesting contrasts between both of the characters, not just in gameplay but storytelling as well. The game does smartly go through the different perspectives of each character, which does bring more variety to the game as well. Naoe in particular does reflect on the legacy of the Brotherhood thanks to her stealth-focused abilities and the conflicts that she faces along the way, while Yasuke does bring raw power and historical intrigue because his real-life figure was interpreted through an Assassin's Creed lens. And while their arcs do connect very well and complement each other well, without really overshadowing each other's arcs. But with that being said, there are some flaws within the performance department of the game. While I do think the voice acting in the game is solid, Naoe's English performance does lack the spark within there. I'm not gonna doubt that Masumi Sonoda tried her best here, but because Naoe has a more serious tone to her character, but in English, her delivery just feels flat and emotionless, especially when it comes to scenes that are emotional and intense. I'm not gonna lie, Masumi Sonoda did not do a bad job as Naoe. I just feel like at specific points, the performance can feel a bit flat. Yasuke's performance, on the other hand, is more consistent, and the supporting cast of characters do offer enough variety to freshen up the interactions between NPCs a bit. The story in Assassin's Creed Shadows does have its highs and lows. On the positive side, I do enjoy the dual protagonist format, which does enhance the historical setting quite a bit, blending political intrigue, which I don't really like to talk about politics on my channel, but the whole political theme of the game is well executed here. Personal vengeance, thanks to Naoe's character arc, and the broader assassin conflict, which does improve the overall manner of the game as well. The way that Naoe and Yasuke are portrayed within the game are handled very well, giving players the context on both both sides of the social divide of feudal Japan. The backdrop of feudal Japan within the brink of its transformation does add a bit of weight to the missions, and there are enough twists and moments with the characters to keep interest with the players. But unfortunately, the pacing does undermine the overall story. I did find the beginning a bit slow, since it did take 80 minutes to complete the prologue before the title card even appears, which I do feel like is a bit awkward, and several missions do feel stretched out unnecessarily, especially with the follow feature. There should be an option when following the character to just skip the following part altogether, only because that does affect the pacing for me quite a bit, and some major story areas within the game are affected by the odd pacing choices and the transitions between different areas being a bit disjointed. When the game does pick up, it does deliver on emotional depth, but it does take too long to consistently get to those peaks. But despite the issues I have with the pacing, the overall story does remain satisfying and does honour the series' legacy quite well by blending the history of feudal Japan with Assassin's Creed fiction. And finally, before we conclude the review, we have the soundtrack. The soundtrack in Assassin's Creed Shadows is beautifully composed thanks to the blend of traditional Japanese instrumentation with a few rap-like beats here and there, which I did hear throughout the game. I don't mind in the context of Assassin's Creed, but in terms of the overall immersion, it doesn't quite get there. But still, the overall soundtrack of Assassin's Creed Shadows is excellent thanks to the tense stealth sequences and the booming drums on when you're fighting different enemies throughout the game. I do enjoy the audio direction, which does enhance the overall tone of the game and setting very well. The music does shift seamlessly based on the actions of the player to help maintain immersion throughout the gameplay. The voice acting and sound effects, while strong and overall, do have their uneven moments, and as I mentioned earlier with Norway's English voice actor, Masumi Sonoda, could have had more emotional range in the voice performance. However, the ambient sound design of the game is great. Thanks to the sound of bamboo, wooden floors, and temple bells do serve quite effective sound design to bring the player to feudal Japan. Whether you're sneaking through castles or dueling with an enemy, the overall soundscape of Assassin's Creed Shadows works. There are minor inconsistencies with Norway's voice actor, in English at least, but the audio design is one of the game's biggest strengths. Assassin's Creed Shadows is not the perfect Assassin's Creed entry, but it's sure a good one, especially for fans who have waited years for a feudal Japan Assassin's Creed game. The dual protagonist system, the seasonal world building, and the customizable hideout mechanics are the strongest aspects of the game. And while I did see a few issues with the pacing and performance, they don't overpower the many strengths that this game delivers. And Shadows does capture the spirit of the Assassin's Creed franchise quite well, while improving on key areas such as the combat and parkour. And that's exactly what was needed in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And that is why I give Assassin's Creed Shadows the collector perk and the certified bronze accolade. And overall, I give Assassin's Creed Shadows an 8 out of 10. This is a modern Assassin's Creed game that does stand confidently with Mirage and Origins. And for some, it may even surpass them, but Shadows cannot dethrone Origins. But Shadows is a runner-up as one of my favourites, behind Black Flag and Origins. If you're a fan of stealth, historical storytelling, or any form of cinematic action, there's plenty to find in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And while the experience is dragged down by a few questionable choices, Assassin's Creed Shadows does prove that the franchise still has a variety of new stories to be told, and fresh ways to tell them as well. So guys, what did you think of my review of Assassin's Creed Shadows? Next, I'm going to review F-Zero GX. So, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another video like this one in the future. And I will see you all in a future video. BB8 out.